filming here from the basement of the Empire. I'll get to that later as the importance of that. But to start my speech, from the beginning of the formation of Fargo has been a closely connected but difficult relationship between alcohol and the cultural acceptance. In 1861, the Dakota Territory was added as federal land. Saloons were allowed both in the Dakota Territory and the state of Minnesota at this time. 10 years later, federal troops were called in to dismantle a third of the town of Fargo for its heavy use of alcohol and other activities. As of 1880, 12 saloons were open in Fargo, with a population of 8,000. Some of these saloons were the Jim Morrison, the William O'Neill, and the L. Christopher. During this period when Fargo was a territory, or during this period when North Dakota was a territory, the area of Fargo was deemed the wickedest city in the West. Many feared visiting the city as drunken gunfights were common, prostitution and gambling were widely practiced. A few prominent citizens, along with organizations, began to fight to rid the city of its vices and make it a better city to live in. Robert Pollock, a lawyer who lived in Fargo pre-statehood, led a movement called Anti-Saloon League in Fargo. This organization eventually became nationwide and lobbied to Washington for an anti-drinking legislation. Also, the Women's Christian Temperance Union worked hard to push for the legalization of alcohol sales. This union claimed the number one cause of death in North Dakota was drunk people freezing to death. The union's motto was, "I hereby solemnly promise, God helping me, to abstain from all distilled, fermented, and malt liquors, including wine, beer, and cider, and employ proper judgment to discourage the use and traffic in this area." Okay. November 2nd, 1889, North Dakota was approved for statehood. Almost immediately in the state constitution, prohibition of alcohol made its sale illegal. This was put into place to hopefully rein in the region due to the hard work from these previously stated organizations. The law making the state of North Dakota a dry state was enacted 30 years before national prohibition. The sale of booze was now illegal in Fargo, so all the saloons moved across the river to Moorhead, where sales were legal. During this time. To make things easier for thirsty Fargonians, Moorhead Saloon sponsored a system of free transport that took the Fargo citizens to saloons in Moorhead across the river. These were large wagons that became known as jag wagons. The main pickup station for the jag wagon was actually MP Ave and Broadway, just down the street from here. Jag wagons were frequently raided as they brought back booze from Moorhead to Fargo or for the legal transportation of North Dakota Native Americans to Moorhead. In 1900, alcohol sale for medical service was passed. So Christians and the drugstore became the new Fargo weekend hotspot. For the sale of alcohol for medical purposes, a physician would have to pay $1,000 and get 25 people to sign a petition in the community. In January 17, 1920, the rest of the country followed North Dakota and national prohibition was passed. Now the Fargo citizens could no longer cross the river for their fix. This started a new era in Fargo and opened the way for blind pigs and bootleg operation. Blind pigs were the lower class version of a speakeasy. Blind pigs were frequent in the Fargo Moorhead during national prohibition, and the name came from the owner of the establishment charging a fee to see an attraction, such as an animal, and then providing alcoholic beverages during its service. And that's actually why we came down to the Empire basement. It's been said that the Empire was a blind pig, and these stairs actually went up and led to the illegal sale of alcohol through there. Newspapers from this time period were littered with arrests and raids of local blind pigs. If found guilty, blind pig owners were faced a $1,000 fine and a year in jail. National prohibition led to large-scale bootlegging operations, not only in Fargo, but nationwide. Much of these operations were ran by mafia crime families. Others were small-scale farms making moonshine. The large-scale bootleggers had many methods of transferring their booze into the Fargo area. Some drove cars from Canada to Minot, then eventually down to Fargo. The bootleggers were extremely efficient and had a system of lights in the top of farmhouses to warn each other about police in the area. Police officer overwhelmed by the amount and speed of vehicles carrying booze basically gave up on stopping bootlegging. Other methods included boats using the Red River, where these boats would unload the cargo and the illegal booze was brought into the city through a system of underground tunnels and downtown under the blind pigs. That's where we'll go this way. Alright. So, like I said previously, the empire was thought of to be a blind pig before its legal law that made it a saloon when Prohibition ended. This sealed off door right here is to believe to be where the tunnels came under the city and down in the blind pig. Okay, so the final system of transport was done by railway. Thousands of gallons of booze were transported as a variety of things were loaded and unloaded in Fargo. In 1923, a 640-gallon shipment of alcohol was found disguised as hair tonic at the MP Freight Depot. There was two major crime syndicates that ran the bootlegging in North Dakota, Minnesota region. The Manino crime family was an Italian crime family founded in 1923. It quickly became the most powerful family in the region due to Prohibition. Lorenzo was the Don from 1923 to 1962. Stationed in St. Paul, he basically controlled everything north from St. Paul. They were connected with the crime mob, the Chicago crime mob, including Al Capone. Lorenzo did a lot of his shipping by railway and by the river. Then there was Dave Berman, who was a Jewish immigrant who grew up in Ashley, North Dakota. Served in the Canadian Army in World War II because the United States denied him because of his criminal past. He became close friends during his time in Canada, and that would later become his connection for his supply as he smuggled Canadian whiskey across the border. He smuggled throughout the Prohibition, but later moved to Las Vegas to become a pioneer of mobster gambling. He ran the Flamingo with his partner and was a main inspiration for the Martin Scorsese film Casino. He died in operation in 1962. Along with the large-scale operation, the small-scale moonshiners, mostly in the Red Lake County, it's estimated anywhere from 50% to 90% of Red Lake farmers dabbled in moonshine. Stills were hit all over the county. The whole community saw the industry as a good way to make money. The grocers would smuggle large scales of sugar to supply the farmers, and because moonshine requires a noticeable amount. Local sheriffs would warn the farmers of federal raids. If a moonshiner was picked up by the feds and sent to prison, it was referred to as Joe went to college. The smuggling and bootlegging all came to an end in November 5th, 1933. So ended 43 years of illegal sales of alcohol in North Dakota. It wasn't until December 7th, 1936 that Fargo handed out its first 12 liquor license, including the Empire, which we're in the basement now. which, like I previously said, operated as a blind pig, and the history of Fargo's prohibition is throughout this basement. There you go.